Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today we find ourselves in our homeworld Chaos 5. But a gigantic meteor is on an unavoidable collision course towards us, and it would be an extinction level event. You're the robo-chief of your tribe, and you're trying to be the first to evacuate 15 of your BlastBots or to destroy enemy BlastBots. BlastBots is for 2 to 4 players. It takes 20 to 25 minutes to play. It's for ages 12 and up and published by Rigma Roller. Now it's on Kickstarter right now, so I'm going to show you how the game works and I'll see you on the other side. This is a Kickstarter preview, so all the art and components you see here are not final. These are prototypes. To see the most up-to-date art and components, check the Kickstarter link in the description of this video. Now, as players take turns, they're going to be moving their meteor totem, which right now are just meeples, but again, check the Kickstarter link because these are cool miniatures of meteors that will be here. And it's going to go from key minus 10, 9, 8, all the way around as they're taking turns. And if it ever gets to impact, the game will end immediately. Now each player has their own player board and they have their BlastBots, and there's many in the factory to start the game. There's 2 on your launch pad. The launch pad can only hold a total of 5 of these, and over the course of the game you're trying to get your BlastBots to your launch pad, which then pushes them to the atmosphere, which then gets them in space, and if you ever get 15 of your BlastBots in space, you'll win. But over the course of the game, you can destroy your opponent's BlastBots and they go into your junkyard. And if you ever get this full of 15 BlastBots from opponents, that's another victory condition and a way to win. So how do you go about doing that? Well, on your turn, you're going to take these dice and you're going to roll them, and then players are going to be getting resources, essentially cards of different types, depending on where they set their tokens. It's sort of like a betting, if you will, where you can see that there's a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Now, tier 1s are the numbers 6 and 8, which are the closest to 7 that's on the board, which means these ones are going to come up more often. Further away are 5s and 9s, they come up less often, and then 4s and 10s come up least often from the ones that are on the board. Now, you also notice there's 3 different sections. We have this section here, which is Discovery. We have this section here, which is for Battle, and here for Rocket. And this is going to be important because at the beginning of the game, players have placed out their tier 1, 2s, and 3s out in those respective tiers, and because they're going to be collecting cards, aka resources, as dice are rolled depending on what was rolled. Because each player is going to walk through 5 stages of a turn, and the first one is to roll the dice. So let's say we rolled a 6. We'll look on the board and the 6 is there. Now all players, even if it's not your turn, gets to collect cards or resources depending on where their tokens are. So we look at the 6s and we are red right here. So we will be able to get 2 cards of the rocket, or the yellow cards that you're always getting 2. And I'm going to be able to get 2 cards of the battle cards. But the purple player is also going to be able to get cards from here and here, and the blue player as well, and the orange. So you look at the section of the board that you're in, and you'll be able to get cards for those. For example, there's a deck of cards for each of those different sections. Now at the beginning of the game, each player got to draw 1 card from the section that they had their tokens in. So for example, red had 1 discovery card, we also had 2 battle cards, and we have 2 rocket cards. Now generally speaking, the blue battle cards are used to attack other players' resources and defend against enemy attacks. The Discovery deck is used to help players boost rockets, modify resource production, exchange resources, increase attack power, or sabotage other players' escape efforts. And the Rocket deck is used primarily to move a player's rockets from your factory to the launch pad and getting them to space eventually. But if a 7 was rolled, all players get to draw 2 cards from the decks of their choice. And if it's one of the outlier numbers that were rolled, like a 2, a 3, 11, or 12, that's one way that players' meteors totems move. And remember, if that gets to impact, the game ends. You'll also be moving these at the end of your turn, but there are ways to manipulate the time of the game as well, as I'll show you later. Players will also be able to draw a new card from the deck of their choice, as long as they have a token placed on that deck's corresponding section of the board. Now let's just say that we roll a 6 as our first example, and let's just say this is how our board would look. It would look like this in the first round normally, but just for the example. Now, if we rolled that 6, the rolling player, which is us, gets to move all of our rockets from the launch pad and atmosphere up by 1 section. So that all the ones from atmosphere will go right into space. All the ones from the launch pad will go right into the atmosphere. So you're moving your way up. Remember, you're trying to get all 15 there. If you fill all these up with your rockets, you'll win. And we'll also be able to take a rocket and move it into our launch pad like that. Then you'll go to your action stage where you're going to be doing different things. You can do up to 5 actions. So you could play a card for an action. So I could play the agent here and I would choose any one of these green ones here. So I could destroy a rocket from an enemy's factory or launch pad, or I could destroy a battle or rocket card from an enemy's hand. Now, if you do that, you get to decide what kind of card, which are the 3 types of cards you want to destroy, and then one of those randomly gets destroyed. Same with stealing. You could just steal, in this case, a discovery card from an enemy's hand, and you would do so randomly. Now, if you play this and the other player has an agent card, they can use that card to play it to defend against that very same card. If that happens, both of these cards get discarded, and that's one of your 5 actions. Maybe you want to play another card. That's typically how that works. Now let me show you some of the other card types. Now let's say I played this discovery card, Chaos Magnet. Let's say I decided to, and again, you're only selecting one of these, push up to 2 of your rockets from the atmosphere into space. That would be great. And again, you're only selecting one of these, so this card would be done, and that action would be done. Now a different option you could have taken was to pull up to 2 enemy rockets from their atmosphere back to their launch pad. So on an opponent's board, you could have dragged them from the atmosphere back to the launch pad, if you will. Hindering their progress. The other 2 have to do with the timing of the meteor totems. Now one of these options says to advance all meteor totems clockwise by 1 turn, so it would have placed everyone's like this. Remember, this is sort of a timer for the game, because if it gets to here, it ends immediately. I'll tell you how that scores a little bit later. Or you could have reversed all meteor totems counterclockwise, so you could have given a little bit more time. Now if you're closer to victory of trying to finish the 15 rockets in space, or the 15 opponents in the junkyard, then you might want to give yourself a little bit more time if you're close. And remember, you're only doing one of these, and that would be 1 action. Now let's look at the last card type, which is the rocket cards. And this one specifically allows you to add 2 rockets from your factory to your launch pad. Of course, you have to have room in order to do so. Now, if I had played all 3 of those cards, that would have been 3 of the 5 actions, 1 action per card. But there's other things you could do as well. You could discard any 3 cards to draw a new card from any one of the decks. Or you could discard 3 cards from your hand so you can rearrange your tokens on the resource grid, giving you different types of cards for different certain roles, but they have to stay in the same tiers. Like if I wanted to move this one, I could move it maybe say over here, but it would have to stay in tier 1 because that's the type of token that it is. Now the last option you have for an action is to trade, and you could just trade any 3 destroyed rockets from 1 player for 2 of your destroyed ones in their junkyard. So let's say orange, you would give these 3 back from your junkyard, back to the orange player, they go to their factory, and we would take 2 of ours from their junkyard, assuming they had destroyed 2 of ours earlier, and they come back to our factory. Now usually you'd only do this if you were really low on rockets, or if that player was getting really close to a destruction victory by filling up their junkyard. Now after you've taken 5 actions, you'll discard down to 7 cards. If you had more than that, you'd discard down, and then you'd advance your meteor totem. So again, we would move it to the next one, T-9. Now remember, you can win immediately if you get 15 of your rockets into space, or you fill up your junkyard with 15 opponent rockets. However, if anyone's meteor totem gets to the impact, the game ends immediately, and then you sort of score based upon how things are at that point. At that point, players would score 2 points for every rocket in space, 1 for every one in the atmosphere, 1 for every of their opponent's rockets in their junkyard. If they had the most rockets in space, they'd get a bonus 3 points. If they had the most destroyed rockets, they'd also get 3 bonus points. Also, if you played a Chaos Magnet card that forced this to end this turn, you'll also get a bonus of 2 points. Whoever has the most points at that point is the one that won. Now I'm going to show you some of the other cards I have not shown you yet from the different decks. Now feel free to pause here and read the abilities. I'm not going to go through all of these individually. And here are some other cards from the Discovery deck. And finally, I'll leave you with some of the cards you haven't seen yet from the Rocket deck. Well, there you have BlastBots, and as I showed in the overview, you'll be gaining cards with different strategies based upon where you place your tokens along with the die rolls, then using those cards at the right time for the right reasons to victory. Now, if you'd like to see the most up-to-date art and components and all the different pledge levels available, you can click the link below me in the description of this video, and that will take you directly to the Kickstarter project page, and I'm sure that Rigma Roller would love your support.